My son, 17, found a freak tape of my wife and I, 35F and 40M, and now our kids are freaking out and not talking to us. So to make a long story short, my wife and I have an unconventional freak life, and our teenage son found one of our freak tapes while using my laptop without permission. He has his own computer, so I don't know why he was on mine. My wife and I were sitting at the table going through some bill payments on her laptop, and my daughter, 15, was on her laptop in the living room, which is attached to the kitchen. My son stormed down the stairs and into the kitchen, where he proceeded to start yelling at us over how sick we are. We had no idea what was happening, and our daughter got mad and asked what was going on, and he started yelling about what he found. This set my daughter off, and my wife became hysterical and everyone began screaming at each other. I was so shocked and embarrassed by what was happening that I just remained quiet at first, but I put an end to the fighting and told everyone to split up and cool off, which they did. I told my wife we should talk about this with them, but she said she cannot possibly face them over how mortified she is. I went to try and say something anyway, but my kids were having none of it and wouldn't even look at me. Since then our kids have barely communicated with us and are not coming out of their rooms except for school and extracurriculars. We are making dinners which are being eaten in silence and in different rooms. It has been almost a week and I feel like I need to do something, but my wife keeps begging me not to bring it up and my children won't even look at me. What should I do? Update 1. It wouldn't let me post this earlier this morning, so I'm posting it now during lunch. In my last post I got great advice and some laughably terrible advice, but I followed some of the former to initially good effect. After some back and forth with the wife, I put my foot down and decided we were going to have a sit down as a family and talk this out. She was quite upset, but I told her this would be best. I texted everyone in the morning, I start work early, to let them know to come home on time today because we need to clear the air and have a proper adult discussion, not disappearing into bedrooms. My daughter agreed and so did my son, although he had the condition that it not be in the living room, which was fine. Everyone did as I asked and we held the family meeting in the kitchen. It started off quite awkward and I began by reminding them the importance of respecting people's privacy. I told them that no one is in trouble, but I was very disappointed at my son's actions and said how he could have handled what happened with more discretion. My kids did not like this initially and they said some disrespectful things, but I reprimanded them for it and overall it was tense but calm as it could be under the circumstances. I went on and essentially explained to them that consenting adults, especially those who are married and happy together, shouldn't be shamed for whatever they have decided they enjoy. It is unfair to judge someone else and they need to learn as they grow older that not everyone will adhere to what they think is normal. They can dislike something personally, but it is wrong to hate someone else because of it. This is when it started to go south. My son started to get angry, but not just at us but also his sister. She apparently told her best friend, who is also her cousin, who then told people at school. Apparently my son has been getting made fun of at school because of it and he is obviously very upset. My wife became enraged at our daughter and quite hysterical, and I actually removed her from the situation, not physically but told her to leave and cool off. I was upset too, but shouting wouldn't solve anything. I told my daughter that she was in deep trouble for doing that and asked my son if he had told anyone and he said no, which I believe. I took my daughter's phone and laptop as punishment and grounded her for until the end of the school year, but that is really just plugging a hole in the hull while the ship is on fire. She stormed off up to her room, which is where she will stay. I asked my son why he didn't mention anything to me about the bullying and he told me it was my fault and he didn't want to talk to me at all. I asked what they were saying, but he wouldn't go into detail, just that they would call him names and throw things at him, fruit apparently. His friends were sticking up for him though, which I was happy to hear. He then said some very disrespectful things about me and his mother, which I understood because he was angry but I couldn't excuse, so I also took his electronics off him and grounded him. He still blamed me for the tape, but I told him he wasn't in trouble for finding it, he was in trouble for being a disrespectful little shit. He stormed off to his room, which is where he too will stay for a while. I went upstairs to my wife and she was obviously extremely upset. I held her and she cried for a while and blamed herself before she eventually calmed down enough to talk. She realized that if the cousin knew, then my sister and her husband probably knew too. She was sobbing at the thought of them spreading this to our family, religious types, and we decided to try and get ahead of this. I texted my sister asking her if she was free this weekend to stop by for coffee or something. She didn't reply immediately, though I know she saw the text, and eventually she responded saying that she rather wouldn't right now. So now my wife is depressed, saying that my family are going to hate her and shun us and we would lose our community presence. I feel like I need to talk to my sister just to make sure what she knows and ask her to keep it to herself, even if I invite myself over. Does that seem like a good idea? Should I also talk to the school about my son and see if I can help at all? My daughter didn't mention any bullying, but she might be taking heat for this too. Also, we deleted all the adult stuff we had on the laptops and then I spent a good hour or so figuring out how to encrypt files, although my wife told me not to bother because it would never happen again. I'm also looking at family therapy because I want us to go and talk to a professional about it. Update 2. So I wasn't going to post anything more, especially after the reception my last post received, but it's very early and I'm not doing anything for a while yet, so I decided to let everyone know how it all turned out. Sorry to disappoint, but I haven't killed myself, my children don't hate me, and my life isn't in ruins. So for those of you who told me to neck myself and everyone who decided that my relationship with my children was ruined forever, I sincerely pity how terrible a relationship you had with your parents and hope you never breed. Anyways, my last post yielded little advice and consisted mostly of people telling me how fucked everything was. Shout out to you /Sabrina for actually giving some advice, so I decided to just ignore you all and do what I thought was best. I went to see my sister on Saturday morning, and when I arrived she seemed surprised to see me but invited me in anyway. She explained that her shortness over text was because she was dealing with her own problems with her/my children. She told me that cousin was being bullied by my daughter at school for no reason. I realized it must be about her blabbing about the tape, so I explained the situation, leaving out the contents of the tape obviously cause I'm not stupid. She decided to punish her daughter for being disrespectful of someone indulging sensitive information, and we agreed that I would talk to my daughter about how wrong her behavior had been. Yes, she is religious, but she isn't insane and she doesn't judge me. I decided to let my kids stew without their electronics until Sunday while I helped my wife pull herself out of her shame spiral. After a long day of helping and supporting her, she seemed to snap out of it and slept peacefully for the first time since this all happened, which I was very grateful for. On Sunday we decided as a team to sit down with our kids and talk to them again. We started with our daughter as she seemed easier to deal with. We sat her down and I explained to her that what she did was similar to me reading her diary and then telling other people what was written in it. There's nothing wrong with having a diary and there's certainly nothing wrong with what was written in it, but it is embarrassing to have others know. She understood the example and apologized. We then got on to the topic of the cousin and explained that, while what cousin did was very wrong, she shouldn't be so hard on her and to stop with the bullying. Our daughter agreed, although she said their friendship was done and I said that was fair enough. We gave her back her electronics and reduced the grounding to a week. What she did was still wrong and so requires punishment. We next called down our son and talked to him about why he was punished. His mother is his mother and no child, regardless of the reason, has any right to talk to their mother the way he did. Same goes for me. He apologized for what he said and then we talked about schools and if he wanted to change schools. He was genuinely scared that we were going to switch his schools and he explained that the bullying wasn't that bad, just some loser kids who were throwing stuff at him and harassing him in the halls. My son is very well liked at his school and has many friends and loves his sport, so we decided not to move school. I did the same with him that I did with my daughter and gave him back his electronics. During the week I got a call from his school that he had been in a fight and was facing suspension, so I went to the school and it turns out he got fed up with the harassment and beat up one of the bullies. The principal was talking serious punishment, but I told him to fuck himself and explained that my son was standing up for himself against people who were using sensitive information to bully him. At the end of the day it was decided that a series of detentions was more appropriate for both people involved, which we accepted as a compromise. I told my son I was proud of him for standing up for himself and that he wouldn't get any punishment at home. As for the whole community finding out, well, it turns out that adults don't tend to believe children when they gossip. Shocking, I know, and all that is known is that my wife and I have a freak tape. So no one cares, or at least no one we care about cares. So we are back to a sort of normal. The kids are talking to us again and eating dinner at the table and we are all a lot calmer, if still a bit tense. In the future we will be a lot more careful about this kind of thing. To address a few things from the last post, yes, the world isn't fair, but why should I then teach my children to contribute to that unfairness? Answer: I shouldn't. Why just punish the kids? What about your punishment? LOL, parenting isn't quid pro quo. The laptop did have a password on it. It was unlocked as I had been using it barely 10 minutes earlier. There is nothing wrong, neither morally nor ethically, with recording a freak tape of consenting adults. People calling me and my wife degenerates can crawl back to whatever sad little hole they crawled out of. Anyway, I won't bother reading any replies to this, so spare me your vitriol. Just wanted you all to know that it worked out fine. Final update. Hey, this is me. Saw this when browsing my main account. Crazy to see this post again. It was a tumultuous time. For people calling me a groomer because my wife gave birth at 18 and I was 23, it was an accidental pregnancy caused by a one-night stand after a night out and she decided to keep it and I supported her. We hadn't met before then, we didn't start dating until later. On the state of the family. It'll disappoint a lot of people to hear this, but things have been just fine. The whole thing blew over and we were back to being a normal family not long afterwards. Oldest is almost finished college, the youngest is soon beginning, and my wife and I are stronger than ever. On the daughter's cousin/best friend. My daughter and her fell out and never quite made up properly, but they're family so they have to see each other sometimes and they seem to be on good terms. As for the rest of us, we forgave her and just moved on. Kids do silly things sometimes and we were just happy to have this whole thing disappear. Ada for screaming at my GF after she picked the bathroom lock while I was in the shower. Throwaway because I have to admit something really embarrassing. I, 24 meters, just had a bad fight with my GF, Anna, 24F. We met early in college, started dating 2 years ago and then moved in together 3 months ago. I always thought we were great together. She's smart and funny, we've had the best talks and have similar views on science and politics. But we moved in together and she got upset because I took long showers. I don't like to talk about it but I'm a hairy guy. Think Luther from Umbrella Academy. I quit sports when I was 13 because I couldn't deal with what the other guys would say about how much body hair I already had by then. So I shaved my whole body and yes it takes a while. Anna and I have never talked about my shaving but she has to know I shave from feeling the stubble. So Anna started questioning why I spent so long in the shower. I should have just told her but I was too embarrassed to say it takes a while to shave so I said I just like thinking in the shower. Then yesterday while I was in the shower she used a screwdriver to pop the bathroom lock and caught me shaving. She put her hands on her hips and told me I was wasting water and I yelled at her to get out. She didn't leave and lectured me more on wasting water than I shouted again a lot louder for her to get the fuck out. It freaked her out and she slammed the door behind her. I was mad and took a few minutes to cool down and think about what I was going to say to her, but when I got out she had locked herself in the bedroom. I could tell she had her back against the door and was crying. She said I scared her and that I showed her that I wasn't the kind of man she thought I was. I told her she had scared me, and that it didn't even make sense why she did it because we don't even pay the water for our apartment. She got more upset and said I didn't even understand the problem because I showed her that I could be violent and abusive and I just needed to leave. I tried to keep calm and asked her to come out so we could actually talk about what happened, but she just kept saying I wasn't who she thought I was and I had to leave. We've argued about ideas but never had a fight before, and I swear I've never yelled or cursed at her before that. I hate fighting with anyone and am normally the more calm person when our friends have things going on. I feel like my whole world just suddenly fell out from under me. I don't think this was my fault but I also think none of this would have happened if I wasn't so self-conscious about the body hair issue, or maybe if I had just been honest from the beginning and told her why I take long showers. I'm sure this relationship is over now and things are going to be messed up for a while, but I just want to know, am I the asshole for causing this whole mess? I am a complete idiot. I'm writing today hoping to save someone else from making the same stupid mistakes I made. I'm trying to think of where to start because after this last weekend I don't even feel like the things that happened in my first post even matter anymore. Basically my GF Anna popped the lock in the bathroom while I was shaving in the shower to yell at me for wasting water. I shouted at her to get out which scared her bad enough that she told me to leave our app because she was afraid I could hurt her. People here warned me to be careful with her after that but I thought I knew Anna better than anyone on Reddit and I thought for sure we would be mature and talk about everything once we were both calm. I sent her a text and said we could talk whenever she was ready about what happened or that if she just wanted me gone then we could talk about that too and come up with a plan to separate. I waited but she never texted back. Then at work on Friday I got called to the front desk. There was a police officer waiting for me there and at first I thought something terrible might have happened. Instead I got served a restraining order. The whole time I was being served I got confused and I didn't know what I was thinking. I know I didn't pay a lot of attention to what the cop was telling me. After he left I did the stupidest thing anyone could do after getting an op and I texted Anna. I asked what was wrong and if this was a mistake because from my end this was just a huge misunderstanding and that if we could just talk I knew we could clear this all up. 2 hours later 2 police officers came all the way up to my desk and I was arrested. Like handcuffs and everything in front of everyone I work with and I was dragged out of the building and taken to jail. I have never been in trouble in my life and I never once thought I'd end up in jail just like that. I got processed like a full-on criminal. I didn't know what else to do and I called my parents when I could to let them know what happened. My hometown is like 6 hours away but they found a lawyer and then drove over as fast as they could overnight to bail me out. Right now we're all staying in a small hotel while we figure out things with the lawyer and I can't even process how things got here. I'm supposed to have a meeting with my boss in HR on Thursday and I have no idea if I'm going to still have a job. All I can do right now is give others a warning to take things more seriously than I did. Especially getting something like an op. Even if you think there's no way it could be real or valid, don't be an idiot and question it like I did. Go straight to a lawyer. I'm still so confused as to how things are where they are, and there's a lot I don't know, but I had a meeting with my lawyer after he got the report on how I got a restraining order. After everything that happened originally 2 weeks ago the police were called. They spoke with Anna and some neighbors at my apartment complex, and 2 people told police in the report that they heard me yell "fuck you" and then they heard loud bangs. I know the fight we had didn't happen the way those people said it did but my lawyer says it's going to be hard to defend against multiple people who said that happened. There's also something about photos of bruises but I have no idea when or how that happened. My lawyer thinks the biggest problem is the neighbors' report and I think they just didn't hear everything that happened through the walls the way it actually did so we have to try and find someone who will say that they heard me shout I actually shouted and that should help a lot. On the bright side, I had a meeting with my job and my manager really defended me. We all agreed that it was a lot of drama that never should have happened at the office, but as long as I don't end up with a felony on my record I will get to keep my job. So the big issue now is that Anna has a lawyer, my lawyer is talking to her lawyer, all communication has to go through them, and I'm hoping we can find a way soon to get all of this under control. Thank you to everyone who sent their thoughts and ideas of what to do after my last post. I'm sorry I just haven't been able to bring myself to read through them after everything that happened, but I'll try and get caught up on them over the next few days.